your future.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and a wonderful 2019 to you. I am Dankert Lexicon, and let me welcome you to a whole new episode of the Steampunk Beginner's Guide. Today we're going to talk about a subject recommended to us by writer Jeremy Vesmeyer, who asked us to talk about steampunk technology. Originally, this was intended to be one long video on the subject. However, due to the information density, we decided to cut it up in several topics. Today, we'll be doing an introduction to what we're actually talking about when we talk about steampunk technology. Or should I say technology in steampunk? Or, well, actually it's technology in any fiction, really. The romantics who wrote the first science fiction stories were inspired by the technological innovation of the 18th and 19th century. It marked the end of the religious paradigm in which the population only had Armageddon to look forward to. Instead, people were speculating about future innovations and what future societies could look like. Memento Mori became what if? What if is the central question in any science fiction story. What if we found a way to explore the land, sea and sky, and finally, space itself? But what if we're not alone in the universe and we discovered other life? What if other life discovered us? The reason what if is such a powerful question is because it suggests progress. Progress creates conflict, and conflict drives stories. Mary Shelley asked the question in Frankenstein, what if we could resurrect the dead with lightning? This was the story that started the tradition now known as science fiction. What if science could make the impossible probable? This would inspire writers like, for example, Gene Roddenberry to create universes such as Star Trek, where technology creates near-utopian societies. However, Shelley also explores the unexpected consequences, the responsibility of creating a life form with its own agency, and that such a life form must live among humans who fear what they do not understand. And in an age of industrial revolution, people started to wonder if the good of all this change would outweigh the bad. A question that is still relevant to this day. For a long time, however, science fiction focused on the marvels of science and technology, and the exploration of places where no man had gone before. But in the 1980s, a new subgenre emerged: cyberpunk. The noble explorers were replaced by common folk that lived everyday lives in not-so-distant futures, dominated by the technological marvels. But technology was not just a blessing, they also became tools of tyranny, ways to dominate and obscure reality itself. Dependence on technology would be compared to addiction, something we cannot get enough of, whether we need it or not. Gibson's cyberpunk was like a Luddite to contemporary science fiction that was mired in pulp and stale tropes from the time of Hugo Gernsback, such as the Flash Gordon serials and movies like Forbidden Planet. In that context, it's a bit strange that the man who told us to abandon the whimsical science fiction of the 50s to make a return to that of Jules Verne. Technology will change the world as we know it. And no genre probably elaborates more on this than steampunk. But to understand steampunk's relationship with history, we first need to talk about another genre called alt or alternative history. A quaint little genre that simply asks the question, what if history? What if Napoleon didn't invade Russia? What if Hitler didn't invade Russia? What if Russia didn't exist? These are typical scenarios that people enjoy to discuss, and therefore it's no surprise there are stories written about it. But these stories are about humans making different decisions, events having different outcomes, and the possible consequences. However, in Gibson's version of steampunk, it is technological progress explicitly that changes the course of history as we know it. Kinda sad, really. It would indicate that humans are nothing but tech junkies, always on the prowl for something more technologically advanced. But I guess even the most talented of us need their tools. William Gibson and Bruce Sterling's Difference Engine was the first attempt at a self-defined steampunk novel after K.W. Jeter invented the term. In his book, The Successful Construction of the Difference Engine by Babbage changed 18th century England into a technocrat-run oligarchy. All information is managed through difference engines, making it possible for the government to track every person's movement across the empire, but also to decide what information is being spread. The initial intent of the genre was to ask the question, what if technology changed history? One could say that steampunk is cyberpunk in the past, but for many writers and world builders, steampunk has become little more than an aesthetic, something to spice up their setting, and little else. The presence of airships and weather control devices are reduced to props in typical pulp or fantasy stories with little or no historical references whatsoever. It is one of the reasons why steampunk can be supplanted into any genre with relative ease. You need a device that can perform modern miracles. It is often steampunk. You need a futuristic device in a fantasy setting. It will often look steampunk. You want something otherworldly in your paranormal adventure? Again, consider steampunk. Steampunk is both alien and familiar. It both stands out and blends into the surroundings at the same time. It's probably why such aesthetics became so popular in, for example, the gaming industry. It, however, is also the reason why people often get confused on the topic of steampunk. Whether something is or isn't steampunk is a contextual thing. We at Radio Retro Future like our steampunk to be alt history with a Gibsonian twist. To make steampunk work, we need to talk about historical context, something we will discuss in future videos. But for those that can't wait, we already have a video on anachronism, so be sure to check that one out. Technology makes our lives easier and more efficient. It is something that readers take for granted. In a contemporary setting, we don't think about rather a character has a mobile phone with internet access. In fantastical settings, this is different. Right off the bat, it is not obvious what gadgets exist or not. In movies and comics, we can just show what devices characters use within their world and how it affects them. But regardless the challenges of the medium, it is very important to clarify the relationship between characters and their tech. Now in alternate history steampunk, it is technology that has changed the course of history as we know it today. In the book The Difference Engine, it was the successful invention of computers in the 19th century. In the strategy game Dystopian Wars, it was evolved with alien technology that was discovered in Antarctica. In steampunk, technology and world building go hand in hand. It creates interesting settings, but nothing is more interesting than how humans behave in these worlds. The genre being a derivative of cyberpunk, the spread of technology is usually the consequence of human ambition and desire. But in some settings, there are natural factors that forced humanity to be more creative. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in our next video we'll elaborate more on technology in world building and steampunk. And, well, any genre really, as technological advancement is not unique to this genre. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna wish you all a wonderful 2019, and of course, make it your way.